first big reaction coming in from the Bharatiya Janata Party, a scathing attack at the BBC and also saying that this survey that is being conducted by the Income Tax Department, no organization is above law. But what we are bringing to you now, apart from the details from the BBC offices, this, remember, is an ongoing survey. They say this is not a raid or a search, but the top government sources are now telling India Today that the income tax authorities conducted that survey with regard to a reason. Look closely on your screen. According to the sources from the top government officials, that IT department had been tracking with regard to tax evasion issues. There was a non-compliant under transfer pricing rules. But the BBC was persistent and deliberately violative of transfer pricing norms and were deliberately diverting significant amount of profits and have not followed the arm's length arrangement in the case of allocation of profit. In fact, what we are also being told by our sources that this is not just an immediate reaction, but for years now they had been breaking the provisions and there was this non-compliance with the transfer pricing rules and vast diversion of profit. So top government sources telling India Today that the IT authorities conducted a survey because there was BBC's deliberate non-compliance with the transfer pricing rules and the vast diversion of profits. But they're also saying that this was on for years. And the key focus, therefore, of this survey will be to look into the manipulation of prices for unauthorized benefit, including tax advantages. These are undertaken as surveys due to BBC's persistent non-compliance of the norms, making it a repeat offender. What I'm reading to you is what sources from the top government are telling us about why the IT department is currently indulging in this survey. In the case of the BBC, according to our sources, there has been persistent non-compliance with the above-mentioned rules, and result of the same, notices have been issued to the BBC. But they have been continuously defined and non-compliant and has significantly diverted their profits. This is the key word here, that the BBC has been continuously defined and non-compliant and have significantly diverted their profits. Remember, one allegation was on tax evasion, but another was there money coming in from a Chinese firm, and all of that is going to be looked at. But according to our sources, as this is the first information coming in, and what we can break for you is that the survey that is being done by the BBC, by the IT department and the BBC premises, both in Delhi and 2 in Mumbai, so actually 3 offices in total, that it was non-compliant for years. And that several notices have already been issued to the BBC, but they were continuously defined, non-compliant, significantly diverting their profits. Remember, it's now up to the IT department. We'll be waiting if at all there's a statement and investigation comes in. Himanshu Mishra have got us that big information from the sources as well. Himanshu, थोड़ा हमको और बताएं कि ये एक तरह से सरकार का जो है और आईटी डिपार्टमेंट के सोर्सेज का कहना है कि हम इमीडिएट रिएक्शन नहीं कर रहे हैं, बहुत टाइम से ये ट्रैक किया जा रहा था, उनको पहले भी नोटिस भेजे गए थे बीबीसी को और नहीं आया था वहां से रिएक्शन।
देखिए, बिल्कुल जो इनकम टैक्स के सोर्सेज के हवाले से हमारे पास खबर आई है उसमें यह है कि कई बार जो है इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट को जो है नोटिस भेजा गया, लेकिन उनकी तरफ से किसी भी तरीके का कोई जवाब नहीं दिया गया है। और इसीलिए ये जो है जब इस तरीके की कोई छानबीन होती है तो उसको सर्वे के आधार पर देखा जाता है, लेकिन उनका ये कहना है कि कई वित्तीय अनियमितताएं जो है वो बीबीसी के द्वारा की गई हैं और इसीलिए इनकम टैक्स जो है अब वहां पे जो है सर्वे कर रहा है। लेकिन सवाल ये है कि बीबीसी की तरफ से अभी तक क्यों नहीं उन नोटिस का जवाब दिया गया जो इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट की तरफ से भेजे गए थे। पूजा,
हिमांशु, और ये डिटेल बताएं कि क्योंकि जो पॉलिटिकल शोडाउन हो रहा है, जो ऑपोजिशन पार्टीज है वो तो जुड़ गई है सब साथ में, और वो कह रही हैं कि क्योंकि डॉक्यू सीरीज आई थी मोदी सरकार पे तो इसीलिए ये एक रिवेंज है। तो हमें ये भी बताएं कि जो राजनीतिक मुद्दे हैं किस तरह से, एक तरफ तो आईटी डिपार्टमेंट का सर्वे है, चाहे उसे सर्वे कहे, रेड कहे, सर्च कहे, और दूसरी तरफ है पॉलिटिकल शोडाउन।
देखिए, बिल्कुल पॉलिटिकल तरीके से अगर देखा जाए तो कई तरीके के सवाल जो है वो उठाए जरूर जा रहे हैं, लेकिन उसी को ध्यान में रखते हुए इनकम टैक्स की तरफ से ये कहा गया है कि किसी भी तरीके से जो है जो भी गैर कानूनी काम इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट के संज्ञान में आए हैं उसको लेकर ये जो है रेड की जा रही है। तो वो एक तरीके से इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट ये कह रहा है किसी भी तरीके के कोई पॉलिटिकल वेंडिटा के तहत जो है ये नहीं हो रहा है। इससे पहले उनको नोटिस भेजे गए थे, उसके जवाब नहीं मिले हैं और इसीलिए इस तरीके की जो है जो छापेमारी की गई है यानी कि रेड की गई है, लेकिन इसको किसी भी तरीके से पॉलिटिकल एंगल से ना देखा जाए। ये कहा गया है इनकम टैक्स सोर्सेज के हवाले से।
All right, Himanshu Mishra, thank you very much for now. Himanshu getting us that big news. Remember, he's spoken to his sources in the government, also in the income tax department. And what he's saying, and I just repeat it for you, that it is pertinent to mention that this exercise that is being done is a survey. It is not a search or a raid. It is as per provisions of the income tax department. But there was deliberate non-compliance by the BBC for years with transfer pricing rules and its diversion of profits. And in the case of BBC, this was going on for years. They had been served several notices earlier as well, but the BBC, which is the British broadcaster, had been continuously defiant, non-compliant, and has significantly diverted their profits. So this is the first statement information coming in about the transfer pricing rules and the diversion of profits. Let's go on the ground now. Let's try and get you the latest of what's happening in Mumbai and Delhi. Let's begin first with the national capital. In the heart of Delhi, in central Delhi, Connaught Place is where the BBC office is, where currently that search, survey, raid, whatever you want to call it, that's going on right now. Let's go across to Divyesh Singh also in Mumbai and Milan Sharma. First, Milan, to you. What is the situation right now? Anyone speaking at all? What is the reaction coming in? Because according to the income tax sources, department sources and the government, there was a non-compliance. They were served notices earlier, but there was absolutely no reaction. They were being defiant and there are serious tax evasion irregularities is the claim. Milan.
Well, Pooja, we'll have to wait for the BBC to respond to these claims. These are claims that are being made by both the IT department as well as the government sources, because now questions are being asked of the timing of this particular survey. The IT department has now come forward and said that this is not a raid per se. This is a survey, and it's a routine survey that's done for those who are in the net of financial irregularities. Of course, the charge of the IT department that is being leveled on the British Broadcasting Company is clearly non-compliant under transfer of pricing rules, persistent and deliberate violative of transfer pricing rules, which means that there is some misappropriation of funds. That is what BBC is being charged with right now. And as we speak, Pooja, there's a team of officials that's still inside the BBC premises from where I am reporting from, outside the BBC premises right now. And it's almost been about, they came in at about 11 o'clock, so it's almost been several hours now, 2 to 3 hours, that the team is still inside conducting searches. There are a few employees inside the BBC office right now, and their phones have been currently seized. They're not being allowed to speak to the media or anyone else. But we are expecting a formal statement that could come by from the London office of the BBC, the London press office. They would be the one to respond to all the information that has come forward.
Milan, stay on with me. Let's go across to Mumbai now, because that's where Divyesh Singh is. Divyesh, you also have been speaking to some of the officials, or trying to, because I understand there's no official statement coming in right now. But the government is also very clear. It appears that the government and the income tax department sources are saying that this is not sudden, that they had been tracking for years about this non-compliance. So what are your sources telling you, Divyesh, now?
Well, as we pointed out, Pooja, earlier also,
Yes.
that this tax evasion issue is related to transfer pricing. So what is transfer pricing?
Yes.
Transfer pricing is usually done within subsidiaries of the same company. So BBC India would be a firm, and there are subsidiaries which would be BBC Marathi, BBC Hindi, and there are various other subsidiaries of the main firm in India, and through that transfer pricing is done to save the labor cost, and that is further used to save taxes, save labor charges, and that is what is being assessed as of now by the income tax department in this survey. Right behind me in this building on the 5th floor, the BBC office is located, and that is where the survey is going on in Mumbai. BBC finance officials, accounts officials, they are being questioned, they are asked, they are being asked for documents, they are being asked for soft files, they are being asked for electronic files and details of the transfer pricing, details of the payments they've made, of the revenue they have generated, and also...
Divyesh, can you help us understand, for the viewer watching right now, because these are technical terms, a global tax irregularity, transfer pricing, global transfer pricing, what does it really mean? And diversion of profits, according to information coming in, what does it mean, and how has the income tax decided to then go across and do a survey in person? Divyesh, if you can hear me, and if you can help us understand about this taxation irregularity that appears to be one of the reasons.
So, Pooja,
I think yes, go ahead.
So Pooja, in transfer pricing, what is done is, suppose there is a firm, say for BBC India or BBC World. BBC World has its head office in Delhi, and there are subsidiary firms of the companies which could be BBC Hindi, which could be BBC Marathi, which could be BBC Gujarati, and various other firms which are subsidiary firms. So the labor which is employed in these particular firms is further used by the main firm, which could be used by BBC India, and for the tax that they pay for these subsidiary firms could be used for deduction. That is where the tax evasion happens, and that is what is being assessed by the income tax department. That is why the files are being assessed by the income tax officials at the Delhi office, at the Mumbai office, and once the files are assessed, once the revenue has been assessed, once the deduction has been assessed, once the tax payment has been assessed, only then the income tax department officials will come to know whether a case is to be made out or not. All this information has been gathered through an intel input that has been received by the income tax department, and only on that basis a survey is conducted. Remember, income tax department does not conduct a survey without a satisfaction note. So there is a satisfaction note regarding tax evasion by BBC, and on that basis this survey is being carried out.
What does that mean? Divyesh, you're pointing out a very important point here. I just quickly want to elaborate before I go across to our reporters as well. What do you mean when you say that IT department needs to have a satisfaction note?
Before conducting any survey on any firm, any organization across the country, if the income tax department receives intelligence input, so they prepare a satisfaction note. So tomorrow, if any concerned organization, any organization which is being assessed or being surveyed, they approach the court against the income tax department, so they process this, they provide this satisfaction note on basis of the intelligence that they had developed, the intelligence that they had gathered, and only on that basis that the survey had been carried out. This satisfaction note will have all
there is a satisfaction note that is prepared before
evasion charges.
Before the IT department decides to go ahead and raid, search or survey, they need to have details in place. It's not that they can just land up at a location and start raiding, because it's a political issue. They're trying to make it look like we're trying to also put out other facts that are coming in from the IT department. Let's go across to Mustafa. Mustafa, where are you right now? What are details that are coming to you? Because there's absolutely no official statement. We're trying to get as much information from our sources. Mustafa.
Yes, correct. BBC has two offices in Mumbai. The first one is near Kalina Bandrakula complex, where it's likely that the searches by the IT department is going on. The second office is right behind us, where we are in Khar Linking Road area. This is the building where this office of BBC Worldwide is situated. On the second floor of this building, we went there. We have the video also that the office is shut. When we spoke to the security guard of this building, he told us that there was like everyday employees had come to office in the morning, but then they left and the office is now locked. So somewhere what the reports which we were learning is that the employees have been asked to go back to their houses. This is something which has happened in this case also. The employees who are not connected, their departments are not connected with this raid or the investigation or the searches being carried out by the IT department, they have been asked to go back home, and hence this office at Khar is also locked. Back to you.
Alright, so this office has been locked for now, but remember, this is right now only the finance department. Our colleagues on the ground, Milan Sharma, Divyesh Singh, Mustafa. Divyesh and Mustafa are in Mumbai. Two locations of BBC office are being surveyed right now, while Milan Sharma is in Delhi. Please stay on with me, because I'll just come back to all our colleagues in just a short while. If you're joining us right now, BBC offices in Delhi and Mumbai are being searched by the Income Tax Department. A team of 15 officials are carrying out this survey, as they're calling it, at the premises of the BBC office in Connaught Place in Delhi and in BKC and Khar in Mumbai. Sources are telling India Today that some of the mobile phones of some employees have been reportedly confiscated. India Today has the inside track and trying to get you all the details on this developing story. Sources say the allegations of tax evasion, international taxation and transfer pricing irregularity are under the probe. Sources say IT department offices are verifying certain documents, but that is in the account and finance department only. So they've not gone into the newsroom or the directors and promoters yet. But there are few mobile phones, desktop, laptops that have been taken on account of the digital evidence that the IT department says they need to collect. But all of this has become a huge political showdown while the survey is presently still on at the BBC offices.
बीजेपी के स्पोक्सपर्सन्स कह रहे हैं कि हर इलेक्शन से पहले ऐसे एक इंटरनेशनल कंस्पिरेसी होता है. पहले रफाल था.
देखिए स्मिता जी, मैं बीजेपी के स्पोक्सपर्सन को इसका जवाब देने दीजिए. मैं आपको बताता हूं, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने इसका संज्ञान लिया है. इस बारे में मैं कम से कम अभी बात करना नहीं चाहूंगा.
क्या कोई कंस्पिरेसी है सर, जैसे बीबीसी का डॉक्यूमेंट्री हो या फिर ये सब ये हिंडनबर्ग का रिपोर्ट हो? क्या आप भी ऐसे देखते हैं कि कोई?
देखिए, सत्य जो होता है इस पर 1000 कॉन्स्पिरेसी कर लो, कुछ नहीं होता है. वो करोड़ों सूर्य की भांति तेजस्वी बनकर ही बाहर आता है. ये तो मोदी जी के पीछे 2002 से कर रहे हैं और हर बार मोदी जी मजबूत होकर, सच्चे बनकर और जनता की ज्यादा लोकप्रियता हासिल कर बाहर आए हैं.
यहां हम जेपीसी की मांग कर रहे हैं अडानी के मामले में, और वहां सरकार बीबीसी के पीछे पड़ी हुई है. विनाशकाले विपरीत बुद्धि.
So this is a united opposition attack also at the government. They are saying and alleging that there is a link between this and the docu-series. But also Rajya Sabha Member of Parliament and Advocate Mahesh Jeshmanali had alleged that BBC had been receiving funding from Chinese state-linked company, and that is also one of the reasons likely that the IT department is raiding.
I certainly believe there's a Chinese hand behind it. I certainly do. The BBC made no disclosure about this, right? They have not talked about their Chinese links, and their Chinese links through Huawei, the telecom company. Their funding by this entity has been both long-standing and clandestine. You know, they've taken money from Huawei for a long time, and there's been venomous anti-India propaganda, you know, complete lies spread about the Indian Army's activities in Kashmir. As you know, in 2021, they published a map of India truncated without Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, and the Indian government took up the matter with them, and they apologized, and they got away that time, right? So there has been both overt and insidious propaganda, anti-Indian propaganda, by the BBC for a long, long time, and I think enough is enough. This country has tolerated this complete, you know, false propaganda for a long time, and they needed to be exposed.
So let me now show our colleagues on the ground right now. Delhi, Mumbai, 2 cities, 3 offices primarily. While remember, as you can see, some of the visuals of employees who are not being permitted to enter into the office, they've been asked to leave and go back home. Divyesh Singh is outside the BBC office in Santa Cruz. Mustafa Sheikh is outside the BBC office in Khar. Ashutosh Mishra and Milan in Delhi. Ashutosh is also outside the office of BBC in Delhi. So is Milan Sharma. Milan, I come back to you first because this, remember, is a huge political showdown in the national capital beyond the IT department raid. It's a united opposition, but the government has now started to react. BJP has done its first press conference saying that they've always carried an agenda and this is just what the law is being followed. What are you picking up about what our netas are saying?
Well, Pooja, you're right, you know, because this was going to be a political showdown, whether or not the searches are carried out today or later. But the timing, as I mentioned earlier, while we were discussing, is very crucial because this is the time just before when the BBC documentary that was made on the Prime Minister was released by the BBC's London office. Of course, what we've been told by the sources in the BBC is that the India office of the BBC had nothing to do with it. But of course, since the London office is connected with the Indian offices in these locations in Delhi and Mumbai, of course they are under the scanner right now. The IT department maintains that these searches are happening only and only because there's been a financial misappropriation by the BBC, and that is what is being investigated by the IT department through these searches and surveys. They're not calling it a raid at the moment. We'll have to wait and see whether the IT department is even going to get something in these offices. Of course, they have seized phones of some of these employees, the editors, and those at the top level of the BBC, we've been told by sources, have been told to stay away. Whether or not the search operations are going to go on throughout the day is another question. Meanwhile, the opposition party has blazed guns at the BJP, saying that they are doing this in vendetta of what has already been done by the media organization BBC, and certainly there's not going to be an end to this because it's become a political row now. Of course, the BJP there, the government statements have come forward saying that we are simply investigating what we are supposed to investigate, and as agencies there, whether it's IT, ED or the CBI, the opposition is once again blaming the BJP for using these to their own gains.
The big story unfolding right now is the BBC offices that are facing a survey by the Income Tax Department, and that over tax evasion irregularities. But it's become a huge political showdown. While the IT department is conducting searches at the BBC office in Delhi and Mumbai, opposition has united like no other day. And they have hit out collectively at the government of the centre and are alleging that this is muzzling free speech. They are alleging that the British broadcaster is being hounded deliberately because there was a docu-series on Prime Minister Modi in 2002 Gujarat riots. The Bharatiya Janata Party has also now responded. Gaurav Bhatia did a press conference. They are branding the BBC as, which is the British Broadcasting Corporation, as Bhrasht Bakwas Corporation. They are claiming it has spewed venom consistently against India, and the BJP is defending the IT searches, saying no organization is above law and the agencies are just doing their job.
यहाँ हम जेपीसी की मांग कर रहे हैं अडानी के मामले में, और वहां सरकार बीबीसी के पीछे पड़ी हुई है। विनाशकाले विपरीत बुद्धि।
बीबीसी के अगर कृत्य देखें, जिसके उदाहरण मैं आपके समक्ष अभी पेश करूंगा, तो ये पूरे विश्व की सबसे भ्रष्ट बकवास कॉरपोरेशन हो गई है। और दुख की बात यह है कि बीबीसी का प्रोपेगेंडा और कांग्रेस का एजेंडा एक साथ मेल खाता है।
प्रेस की अभिव्यक्ति की स्वतंत्रता, जो लोकतंत्र की आत्मा है, मोदी सरकार को बर्दाश्त नहीं। एक डॉक्यूमेंट्री बीबीसी ने बनाई है मोदी जी के बारे में। भरपूर कोशिश की सरकार ने कि उसका प्रदर्शन न होने दे। मोदी सरकार ने आज सुबह से, कल जैसे ही खत्म हुई संसद, आय करके छापे पड़ना शुरू हो गए।
श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नेतृत्व वाली सरकार है। यहां पे कोई भी एजेंसी हो, आईटी हो, इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट, चाहे जांच एजेंसियां हो, ये वो पिंजरे का तोता नहीं रही हैं जो सर्वोच्च न्यायालय ने कांग्रेस पार्टी की सरकार को फटकार लगाई थी। ये अपना काम कर रही हैं।
I really do not understand one thing. Why each and every time opposition has been indulging into politicizing any kind of this action? What they want? They want the income tax department or ED department or any investigation agency, they should not work, or they should work. And if they want, they should work. Then they should not politicize these issues.
Well, it's not surprising. It's a typical approach from the BJP under Prime Minister Modi.
Okay.
That at a time when the whole country is asking for an investigation into the nexus between the Adani Group and Prime Minister Modi, here they are going after a media agency. And this only shows how India is further sliding into authoritarianism under Prime Minister Modi. The way domestic media channels, the way global media channels are being harassed, this is nothing but harassment.
BBC is a news organization. So suddenly the income tax finds irregularities in them. After they make a documentary on the Prime Minister, that's what surprises. The income tax department is not above question. During Modi's regime, IT, ED, CBI, these have all been used. against political opponents. Now they're doing it against the media.
So the Income Tax Department personnel are currently at the BBC offices. Whether this is a survey, search or raid, you decide, but there's definitely on a political showdown where the united opposition is gunning for the government. It's the big story. India Today will be getting you all sides of that developing story through the day. I'm wrapping up this bulletin for now. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned to indiatoday.in.